This is an example of Palestinian black humor. It's something that was broadcast on the Israeli radio during the summer of '82 as an instance of how a Palestinian captured quote-unquote terrorist is interrogated by somebody. But it was then transcribed by a friend and given to me. And it was played many times on the radio in Beirut as a form of entertainment of how the Palestinian who was in fact captured turns the table on his Israeli captor who's interrogating him. And this is what happens on the radio. So the Israeli broadcaster says, "Your name." The captured Palestinian says, "My name is Ahmad Abdul Hamid Abu Sitti." The Israeli man says, "What's your movement name?" "My movement name is Abu Layl, father of night." "Tell me, Mr. Abu Layl, to which terrorist organization do you belong?" He responds, "I belong to the Popular Front for the Liberation, Tahrir. I mean terrorization of Palestine, Tahrib in Arabic. "And when did you get involved in the terrorist organization?" "When I first became aware of terrorism." "And what was your mission in South Lebanon?" "My mission was terrorism. In other words, we would enter villages and just terrorize. And whenever there were women and children, we would terrorize. Everything and all we did was terrorism." By this time, of course, the Israelis are very happy that this man is saying all of these things. "And did you practice terrorism out of belief in a cause or simply for money?" Palestinian, "No, by God, just for money. What kind of cause is this anyway? Why, is there still a cause? We sold out a long time ago. Tell me, where do the terrorist organizations get their money?" "From anyone who will spare money for terrorism. In other words, from the Arab regimes that support terrorism." Of course, he's now giving him exactly what he wants, but I mean to such a degree that it's... "What's your opinion," the Israeli says, "what's your opinion of the terrorist Arafat?" Palestinian, "I swear he's the greatest terrorist of all. He's the one who sold us and the cause out. His whole life is terrorism." "What's your opinion of the way the Israeli Defense Forces have conducted themselves?" Palestinian, "On my honor, we thank the Israeli Defense Forces for their good treatment to all us terrorists." "Do you have any advice for other terrorists who are still terrorizing and attacking the IDF?" Palestinian responds, "My advice to them is to surrender their arms to the IDF, and what they'll find there is the best possible treatment." "Lastly, Mr. Terrorist, would you like to send a message to your family?" Palestinian, "I'd like to assure my family and friends that I'm in good health, and I'd also like to thank the enemy broadcasting facility for letting me speak out like this." "You mean the Kol Israel, the voice of Israel?" "Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Naturally, sir."
That's, of course, very amusing and very ironic.
Yeah.
But I do need to know where you stand on this question of terrorism, the killing of innocent people, men, women, children, by Palestinians.
Well, I think it's I think it's a horrible thing. I've always been against it. I've always felt that the emphasis on what has been called armed struggle has been indiscriminate and sometimes foolishly and, in a political sense, stupidly relied on. But I never will concede that the essence of the Palestinian struggle, as the Israelis say, is terrorism. I think that the Palestinians, by and large, to a fantastic degree, have waged war against a merciless occupier, a person, a state, an army, an enemy that has dispossessed them and has done far, far worse to Palestinians than any Palestinians have done to Israelis. And I think one must always make the distinction between terrorism, which is, as I say, random and stupid and unpolitical, and the struggle against an oppressor. And I think in that particular distinction, I'm obviously for the latter and totally against the former. At the same time, as I say, that I myself have always been made uncomfortable by the use of arms in this very ugly and long-standing struggle. But I certainly must say that I've been much more impressed by the cruelty and, above all, the extent of Palestinian suffering than at the hands of the Israelis than the other way around. I mean, the ratio is infinitely greater. The Israelis make no secret of it, that they've always killed Palestinian civilians. sometimes at the rate of 100 to 1 Israeli death. So I think, given that, I think the use of the word terrorism is a mistake.
That seems very clear, but also very cold and unfeeling, one has to say.
I'm not sure what you mean, unfeeling.
Well, to say that bombing schools or school buses is not political.
No, I mean, by that I mean it's wanton murder, is what I'm saying. If that's being cold, then I'm being cold. I'm simply saying that all violence of this sort is ugly. I don't myself believe in the purifying quality of violence as it's sometimes alleged to have. I don't believe in cults of arms and blood and so on and so forth. So that any act of that sort horrifies me. And I've grown up in an area which has had more than its share of violence in my lifetime. But the best that can be said about it is that it's advanced a political goal. I mean, certainly the Zionists have used it and brought it, in fact, to the area. Terrorism, as we know it today, the planting of bombs in marketplaces and so on and so forth, was, in fact, introduced into the Middle East by the Zionists in the 20s. So I'm against that, but what I'm also trying to say is that some people will say that it advances a political cause. I myself don't feel that it does. I mean, I think in this way, it simply attracts attention to it. But the net result of Zionist terrorism and violence in the first third of the 20th century has brought forth, to my mind, the anomaly, the horrific and unacceptable status in the Middle East today of the State of Israel, which is in fact an armed garrison state, which now exports more arms and distributes violence all around the world, vastly disproportionate to its size. I mean, in that respect, I think it's a horrible cycle of violence. But in it all, I think the Palestinian is the victim. There's no question.